Howdy folks, welcome back to another video, and in today's tutorial type of video, I'm going to be going over my top 10 favorite indicators to trade with and of course invest with throughout all of 2024 and 2025 and in future years. And with this video, I have a different type of intention compared to my usual informative educational type of videos. With this type of educational video that I'm about to give you guys, I hope you walk away with from this video with something new that you've learned and something that you will apply during your trading and investing journey over the next multiple years, and if we're still around, the next multiple decades, because what I'm about to tell you in this video is going to be a game changer. And I'm going to show you the tools that will help you as a trader become more successful for the long term. So let's get into it. We got 10 indicators. I've used all of them. I'm going to show you guys examples of how I personally use these indicators, and I'll potentially show you guys how to read these indicators as well. So get your popcorn, get strapped in, get whatever you need, get your beers, get your drink, and let's get into it. Starting off with number one, we have the CM Ultimate RSI multi-time frame indicator. And by the way, to search for all of these indicators, just go tap your indicators tab on the top left and then just type in CM underscore Ultimate RSI. And you will find the one by Chris Moody. This on a weekly chart is really, really cool. And here's why. When you go on a weekly chart, for example, with Tesla, you can see that every time we've printed a green bar, right, this has been near bottoms, right? This has been pretty much near the absolute bottoms in the markets. And if we are near red, that typically tells us, hey, this stock is going parabolic. This stock is going crazy. If you're trading call options, this is a really good time to take profits. If you're a long-term investor and you're looking to hold this stock for the next 10, 20 years, you can still keep buying, but keep in mind that over the next very short term, over the next 6 months, 12 months, you may have a little bit of volatility, right? But ideally, the CM Ultimate indicator on the weekly chart is best for finding almost the absolute bottoms to buy. And if you actually want to also try this with even the 5-day chart, you can also pretty much see the exact same places, right? You have the best time to buy, which would have been 2016, and then of course very recently in 2023. You can also play with this on even the 3-day time frame. It can be a little bit off, so keep that in mind. But you can see we flashed a green bar here in February 2016, in June 2019 near local bottoms, and then we printed two of them near our $101 bottom. And then we actually, for the first time on the 3-day chart with this indicator, we got a misfire here at near the end of January, which we did bounce from, but then we saw a pullback down to 138 before we eventually recovered back to this same level of about 196, confirmed it as support, and since then we haven't been near this 196 level. So bear in mind that this can be a little bit inaccurate if you go on smaller time frames. However, if you do go on a higher time frame, such as the weekly, it will genuinely tell you the best times to buy. And if you're trading options, it will tell you, hey, this is the best time to sell, and maybe, have some downside protection and potentially look at puts if you're in options. When you also apply this, by the way, to SPY, this would have essentially told you, hey, the best time to buy the dip was literally March 2020. And the time before that would have been August 2011. And then, of course, GFC. And we actually got one flash here at the absolute bottom on March 9th, 2009, before, of course, the S&P 500 went on a massive rally. So if there are any bear markets in the future on the S&P 500, which there will be multiple years from now, I don't know if we'll get it 12 months from now. I don't know if it'll happen in 2026. I don't even know if it'll happen until 2035. But when we do get a future bear market on the S&P 500, look for this green signal to flash on the weekly chart, because this will essentially tell you, hey, this is the best time to buy this asset, and you do not want to miss out. And of course, we didn't get any buy signals here on the weekly chart here on the S&P, But if you work your way down to these smaller time frames, such as potentially the daily chart, this will kind of help you get a sense of where there may be potential bottoms and where you may want to execute buy orders. You can see that on a daily chart, you would have executed a buy order here in January of 2022. You would have done two back here in September and October of 2022, which is right near your market bottom. And then you also had two buy signals trigger here on October 2023 and October 30th of 2023, right before we went on the massive rally that we saw unfold for 2024. So that is the CM Ultimate Indicator, and I just gave you some examples of how to use it. Let's go back to the weekly chart now, and let's actually switch over to crypto, because this next indicator will be a bit of a game changer for you guys, and that is the Death Cross 200 MA/50 cross checker. This follows the 50 and the 200 moving average, probably the most popular combo of all time. Once again, to search for this indicator, you just type in your search bar on indicators, just type in Death Crosser and select the one by Max Payne. This will help you find turning points on higher time frames in the stock market, especially when you're on a weekly chart. This, by the way, all of these indicators, I should also mention that these work on crypto, this works on T-bonds, this works on the stock market. So you can use these indicators for any of those. So for example, when we use the 5200 MA on the weekly chart, like so on Dogecoin, we can identify, okay, death cross, the last death cross before this crypto cycle happened around here on June 2020. And we could have looked at this and say, oh my God, that's bearish for crypto. Yes, but weekly death crosses tend to print near buying opportunities. Let's look at SPY, for example, and let's actually go to the weekly chart on SPY. You can see the death cross. Every time the death cross has printed here, you can count them with your fingers. We have 1 and we have 2, where the red line goes underneath the green. This typically comes when you're near a market bottom. If we look at the 2001 dot-com bubble, of course, this was a bit of an exception because you did have a fake out bounce that was about 25% here before you went lower and found your eventual bottom, and then you started your next bull run. However, again, if you just combined these two indicators back then in 2001 with the CM Ultimate Indicator and the Death Cross, then you could have been like, okay, you could have looked here back in Q2 of 2020 or Q2 of 2001, and you could have said, okay, we printed a buy signal, but our red line and our green lines are converging together. Maybe we'll wait for a death cross. Okay, as soon as you got your death cross, you got your second buy signal. You could have easily leaped at that. So either way, on a weekly chart, this would have told you like, hey, you have multiple great buying opportunities here for the long term on the S&P 500. And then you can see we also got another death cross here on October 20th, 2008, at the exact same time that we printed a buy signal on our weekly CM Ultimate Indicator, and you printed 3 of these. And then typically you saw a couple more dips after that before you went on the massive bull run that obviously is still in effect today. So yeah, just a little bit of interesting history there on the stock market. And then of course, when you look at the weekly, when you look for weekly golden crosses, these signal long-term bull markets beginning. You can see on Dogecoin, we got one here on January 4th, 2021. And then after that, over the next 3 months, 4 months, we rallied about 10,000% off of that. So far, we got our last golden cross here on November 11th, 2024. And from the bottom of this candle so far, we've rallied about 34%. So given that Dogecoin is also a little bit overextended, it does look like we are starting to top out with momentum if we just look at our CM Ultimate RSI. But when we factor in our weekly golden cross, which signals the start of major bullish moves in any asset you're watching, whether it's crypto or whether it's the stock market, then again, your weekly golden cross, that's going to be your best friend when it comes to finding these long-term, trend changes. Number 3, gaps. This is going to be very useful for mostly stocks. Cryptos don't have gaps, but I'll show you a stock that does have a lot of gaps here and there, and that's Tesla stock. Now, this is something that you want to actually work with on the hourly chart. And for this, I'm going to hide my CM Ultimate Indicator, and I'm going to hide my 50 MA. And by the way, again, to find all of these indicators, just type in gaps, and you can favorite this and add it to your favorites tab. So that way you can go to indicators, favorites, and it's always there. But gaps. This will automatically help you find gaps in trading if you like to play gap fills. For example, you can see we have a gap here that's automatically drawn at $253. This was our pre-election gap. And then we also have one here at 243. And then anything lower than that, there's really nothing there. That's shown on our hourly chart. So this can definitely identify key zones that you can look at if you are willing to swing trade and play potential gap fills. If you guys join Sick Boy Trades, by the way, you guys know that this is one of the many strategies that we use to trade. And if you want to learn more about that, you can join with the link in my TradingView profile. So that's the gaps indicator. Let's keep going through this. Number 4, the wave trend oscillator by Lazy Bear. So to find this indicator, you just type in wave trend oscillator. And then type this into your indicators tab, and you will find the one by Lazy Bear. This is much more impactful on higher time frames. Not necessarily a monthly, but on a weekly chart. This is a deadly weapon because, as you can see, think of this as something like the relative strength index, right? And a mix of our first indicator that we showed you guys, the CM Ultimate indicator, right? When you get below a certain level, when you get near this green level, that's typically the best time to buy on a weekly chart. When you get near this red level, that's probably a good time to take some profits on call options and look for potential downside protection, because typically when we get above here, that's when we get very overextended as a trader. If you're an investor, again, it's also around the same time where you want to not be buying shares like crazy. You want to be buying shares and panic buying when you're near this green level here, which you can see is at about negative 53. And then when you get to the second green level near negative 60, that's when you really want to be panic buying, because this is when you're at a historical buying opportunity. And we can see that we also have this green line, which is basically your momentum. So once your green line, for example, on a wave trend on the weekly chart, when you get above these stars, this signals essentially like, okay, get ready for prices to go parabolic. When you start getting above this solid red line at 60, that's when you're like, okay, something big is going to come to this stock that's going to send this stock to the upside. And for example, you can see here with Tesla, for example, our green line right here, we haven't been above the solid red line since December of 2021. But you can see that when we came to this level back here in December 2019 following a massive sell-off, once your green line punched above here, this is when you got a massive rally in Tesla. This is when you got the first move, right? This wasn't even the complete, move that Tesla was going on. So you can see if we measure this move, when your green line punched above here on December 16th, from this point forward, you saw Tesla stock rally about 132%. And if we also measure the time it took for that move to happen, you can see this happened over the course of 9 weeks or 64 days. So that's the significance of these green lines. And then you can also see when you zoom in on the green line, you can notice that there's like a trail of stars that follows them. I call them the red stars. And essentially, this is basically your confirmation indicator for like, hey, is price about to go parabolic? And typically what you will see is if this red star right here gets above this solid red line, that's once again the signal that it's essentially your bat signal that, hey, price is about to go parabolic. And so that's when you get these red stars. And you can see right now we have a red star at about 58. But once you clear above 60, that's when price usually goes either at or really close to all-time highs. And as we speak, Tesla is about 22% from all-time highs. So that's the wave trend indicator. Number 5, the MACD, the moving average convergence divergence indicator. It's a mouthful. And on a weekly chart, it essentially tells you, hey, where's the buying momentum? Where's the selling momentum, right? It should be pretty obvious from here. Green is bullish, red, bearish. Here's the clicker though. Zoom out to a monthly chart. Put it on any of your favorite stocks. Look at Apple, right? Look at Meta, look at SPY, look at IWM, look at TINA, look at Dow Jones. Every time on a monthly chart that you're printing red, that's bearish, obviously. But when you start to flip towards green, that signals a bullish turning point in momentum to the upside. If we layer this on Tesla, for example, you can see we had a lot of red from April 2022 to August 2024. It's just now that we finally started printing green, which typically when you start printing green on a monthly chart, this means, hey, momentum is bullish now. There's going to be no more bearish price action, essentially. Well, I shouldn't say, that's like a guarantee, but essentially it gives you a pretty good idea of like, hey, when you start printing green, expect bullish price action. So very powerful indicator. You can play around with this if you want on any time frame. Blitzing through these next three indicators, we have, I know that's a lot, but our moving average below or above is the pi cycle bottom indicator. This is actually really helpful when it comes to Bitcoin, because on a monthly chart, this essentially tells you, hey, this is where the bottom is. This is probably the best time to buy Bitcoin, is when you get the pi cycle bottom indicator flashing. On some stocks like Nike, we can get some misfires here and there. Actually, on Nike, we haven't printed a pi cycle bottom indicator since May 1984. You can see it was a bit of a misfire. So it is so-and-so with stocks that have been in significant declines. But when it comes to Bitcoin, this is a really, really powerful tool that's going to help you find the next best time to buy. And you can see the best times to buy was Jan 2015, December 2018, and July 2022. And the next best time to buy will probably be sometime here in 2026. So you want to keep this indicator on watch, because next time you get a pi cycle bottom indicator flashing, that's going to be the time when you get this bat signal right here. That's going to be the time when you want to be panic buying Bitcoin and maybe some altcoins. Notice how I said maybe. Shifting our attention below, we also have two indicators which basically kind of work hand in hand. The RCI 3 line is basically like momentum, right? This is your rank correlation index. So typically when you get a red line above this level of about 80, that's when prices are really bullish. This also applies to any stock. We can also look at Nvidia, for example. And by the way, pi cycle bottom indicator, I should also mention that these are some really good moving averages when you apply them to the stock. So you could definitely use this as a moving average. But for example, when we look at Nvidia, we can see, okay, every time red line gets below negative 79, buy the stock. If we're above 80, don't buy. Maybe take some profits if you're trading options. Below that, we have the stochastic RSI, which is basically the rank correlation index's twin. Every time we get below the 20 level on a monthly chart, for example, probably the best time to buy. When we're above 80, that's the time to probably be flying high if you're in long-term shares. And then also if you are in long-dated call options, probably the best time to start trimming some profits. So that's that. Next up, let's look at our final two indicators. We have the Traders Dynamic Index and we have the True Strength Index. The True Strength Index, by the way, is a variation of the stochastic RSI, but it also helps us figure out, okay, where is the turning point in the market? So for example, on Tesla with the monthly chart, we can see every time that our red line has gone above this orange line, that has typically signaled a bullish trend reversal. When we get a cross up where our blue line on our True Strength Index shoots above our pink line, that's when we also get a further confirmation of, hey, long-term bullish momentum is coming into the market until this blue line crosses down into the pink. When the blue line crosses down below the pink, that's essentially the bad signal of, hey, take some profits here on options and get ready to start buying shares. And the best time to buy shares, according to the True Strength Index, is when you're approximately below this level, about 4, for example, on Tesla. And I'm running on low on time here, and we've pretty much gone through our indicators. But one more thing I also want to show is that the True Strength Index is really powerful when you look at Bitcoin on a monthly and you layer it with the RCI 3 lines. This essentially tells you like, okay, the best time to buy Bitcoin is usually down here on your Traders Dynamic Index, and the best time to buy Bitcoin is when your RCI, when your rank correlation index is also below this negative 75 level. You can see every time that we came below here on a monthly chart in 2015, 2019, and in 2022, this was the best time to buy Bitcoin. If you get this lining up, that's also a further signal. Thank you guys for watching. John out.